Okay, I want to quickly go over some expectations for textbook notes and kind of giving you an overview and example of what I'm looking for and how I create my notes. A lot of my PowerPoints I make straight off of AMSCO, and the AMSCO is very organized in the way it presents the information. If the learning objective is causes and effects, then the first part of the section is going to be all causes, and the second part is going to be all effects. So the first thing I do when I go to make notes is number one, I go through the book and the section, and when we're looking at 2.1, I look at all of the titles in the reading just to kind of see where is the section going. So when I'm looking at 2.1, I can see that it says causes of growth of exchange networks, and then I can see the causes because those are like sub little titles. So the different causes are rise of new empires and improvements in transportation technologies. So I know those are going to be my two um, different causes. Then it says effects of the growth of exchange networks. So I can see there's two major effects, which are thriving cities and commercial innovations. So I kind of look at that. And I can also see increase in demand. So that's just kind of reading through it before I even get started and actually reading it. It's just getting a preview of what the information is going to hold. So then the second thing I do is obviously read it. I do not take notes until I have finished reading. So I read through the whole section first, and then I go back and then I read it and then I take notes. That is definitely why you cannot wait to the last minute to do this because it does take time. But if you just read very quickly and read through it, you're probably not going to understand the information. And then if you don't read, you're obviously not going to understand the information. The point in doing this, I want to go over this because when I looked at your quiz for Unit 2, a lot of people did not do well. Even though it was open notes, I think that a lot of you are really missing some of the connections that you're supposed to be making. And I think at least some of you that might come from not doing your textbook reading or just not understanding your textbook reading. So when we start at this, I'm only going to go over 2.1. So 2.1, there's only one learning objective. And so the learning objective is the causes and effects of growth of networks of exchange after 1200. So what I kind of do is I take all of my notes in this column first, and then I go back through my historical developments and I highlight the main things and I make sure that I've included pretty much every detail of this in my notes. If I'm missing something, like for instance, if I didn't talk about the growth of new trading cities, then I need to go back in my notes and I need to put that in. It's more difficult to go through your historical developments and try to take notes off of that. It's easier to just take outline notes from the unit or from the section title and then going back and kind of checking it. So like I said, this section is over causes and effects. A lot of this is just from the PowerPoint because my PowerPoint, well, I create it from the AMSCO. So, I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I don't know, making outline notes. So you have causes, the rise of new empires. So underneath here, it's just going to include all of the different empires. So you'll see all the different kind of thriving times that the Silk Roads have had. Then the second cause is improvements in transportation technologies. There's three different technologies that are going to be innovated at this point. So I have caravans, camel saddles, and naval technology. And underneath each of those, I kind of either define it or I list the different innovations. Moving on from that, we have the effects of the growth of exchange networks. So our effects, when we're looking at the book, it's thriving cities, it's caravanserai, and commercial innovations. So those are going to be our effects. So going back to thriving cities, here I kind of explain why there were thriving cities. Then I list the 2 thriving cities and I describe them. For this one, I explain what it is, stabilized ends, and then I kind of go in detail. Commercial innovations is very important. There might be a lot of questions about that. So you have the China new financial system, so transitioning to a money economy. Then you have flying cash. Then you have the banking houses and the system of exchange. We mentioned the Hanseatic League. And then lastly, we mentioned the increase in demand. So obviously talking about one of the effects of trade is that increase of demand. So production is going to have to increase. So at this point, you're really going to start seeing proto-industrialization in China and whatnot. So you're just going to describe that there. So after I take those notes, once again, I go back to the KCs and I read through it and I see improved commercial practices. And then I scroll down and, oh, okay, commercial innovations. Yeah, I know I talked about that. Led to an increased volume of trade, expanded the range of existing trade routes, promoted the growth of powerful new trading cities. So look, new cities, thriving cities. So I know I went over that as well. So essentially, you're just reading through this and making sure that you covered all of it. At the end, in this box, you're responding to the learning objective. This learning objective is to explain the causes and effects of growth of networks of exchange after 1200. So for this one, you write out an SAQ. Now this learning objective, I just wrote 2 different ones because it's easier. So one cause and one effect. So when I'm looking at this, my answers are: one cause of the growth of networks of exchange after 1200 was improvements in transportation technology. For example, many camel saddles were created, but the most impactful saddle was the Somali camel saddle. This innovation allowed camels to carry up to 600 pounds of goods, which in return made the long trek from East Asia to Europe worth it. As more people used camel saddles, the trade and networks of exchange expanded, since camel saddles greatly increased the weight of the load the animals could carry. So that's going to be my SAQ for the cause. And my SAQ for the effect. One effect of the growth of networks of exchange after 1200 was the development of commercial innovations. For example, China had already transitioned from a bartering system to a money economy where currency was based off coins and precious metals. With the trade volume increased, it was an inconvenience to transport that daily. In order to manage the increasing trade, the Chinese government developed the system of flying cash, where merchants could deposit money in one city and withdraw that money from another city. This drastically changed how money was being exchanged. As more trade occurred, merchants needed to find better ways to transport money. This innovation encouraged and supported trade by providing convenience and stability of institutions. The big reason why you need to practice doing this is because this is why y'all did not do well on your quiz. And you had a lot of time to do it and you had your notes, but a lot of you didn't understand the information. And so that's why you didn't get it. But you really need to go through the textbook, go through your notes, and then I promise you that is going to help a lot. However, if you do your reading and you still didn't do well on your quiz, we can meet during office hours to kind of just go over it. But do remember that there are 2 opportunities for extra credit to help you with that quiz. Okay, for illustrative examples. Illustrative examples are things that you would be able to use in any of your essays. Specific examples they would be looking for. So for each of these, I kind of just wrote down how it answers the essential question. And I didn't mention the theme, but the last thing you would do is just kind of write down what theme is that connected to. Obviously, all 3 of these is economic. Well, these 2 trading cities, I would probably more focus on the culture aspect of it, so I would say it would be cultural, but that's pretty much it. So that's going to be your notes. I do expect it to look like this. Maybe not perfect, maybe not as much, but I do expect it to look like this. You need to have organized information from your reading because that's the main reason why y'all aren't doing well. It's not enough just to look at the PowerPoints that I make. You need to have information repeated. And so for example, like at the bottom for illustrative examples, if you've already written about these, we'll write about them again because you need to get it ingrained in your head. Anyways, I hope this helps. This is what I'm expecting. I will be grading the last set of textbook notes that y'all turned in. And I will be grading every textbook notes for Unit 3. And I do expect it to look like this now that you have a better example. If you have questions about this, please let me know.